Happy Monday, y'all. This is Charlene from Lady in Waiting 222, and today is our Monday mini devotional. So, we're going to be reading from Mark chapter 8, verses 1 through 4. I want to read two different translations to you. One is the ESV or English Standard Version, and then the second one will be the Message translation. We're going to be honing in on one specific verse, verse 4, and then I want to kind of unpack this as we begin to have a different perspective of what opportunities really are, right? Sometimes we see them as problems, but what would happen if we would see them as opportunities instead? So it reads Mark chapter 8, verse 1 through 4. The English Standard Version reads, in those days, when again a great crowd had gathered and they had nothing to eat, he, being Jesus, called his disciples to him and said to them, I have compassion on the crowd because they have been with me now 3 days and have nothing to eat. And if I send them away hungry to their homes, they will faint on the way. And some of them have come from far away. Verse 4, and his disciples answered him, how can one feed these people with bread here in this desolate place? The Message translation reads, and about this same time he again found himself with a hungry crowd on his hands. He called his disciples together and said, this crowd is breaking my heart. They have stuck with me for 3 days, and now they have nothing to eat. If I send them home hungry, they'll faint along the way. Some of them have come a long distance. His disciples responded, what do you expect us to do about it? Buy food out here in the desert? So what's happening here is pretty clear. Jesus had been preaching for the last 3 days. The crowds had been with him and he had been ministering to them. And what is interesting here is Jesus not only acknowledged their spiritual hunger, which he had addressed, right? And feeding them spiritual food right? Because he is the bread of heaven, right? He is the manna from on high. But now he also acknowledged their natural hunger, right? I want to point out these two verses to you. Verse 4, where it says, how can one feed these people with bread here in this desolate place? And the Message, what do you expect us to do about it? Buy food out here in the desert? I wanted to highlight this because I found myself asking this question. Why do we do this? Why do we automatically assume when a problem is presented to us that us, in and of ourselves, have to figure out what to do about it? Instead of really understanding that God could literally be inviting us to partner with him to solve this problem. You see, Jesus presented the problem to the disciples, right? He said that the people had been there 3 days with him and now they have nothing to eat, meaning their natural hunger. He acknowledged again, like I mentioned, their spiritual and their natural hunger. And he knew that if he sent them away hungry, they would faint. And he had compassion, right, for them. But you can almost hear the indignation or the attitude, so to speak, at least that's how I read the text, and how the disciples responded. They automatically assumed that it would have to be them that had to find enough food. They didn't really first acknowledge that Jesus was the bread of heaven, like he was the one that they needed, right? The people needed. And if Jesus was there, that he would somehow be the answer, right, to addressing the spiritual and the natural hunger of these people. But why do we do that? Why do we assume when we see a problem or a problem is presented to us that we automatically have to figure it out on our own? I would challenge you and encourage you to consider your approach to problems that are now happening in your life. Do you see them as opportunities to partner with God in solving the problem? Recognizing that he is the solution, and if you have him and he's invited you into this space and he's showing you and telling you about this problem or allowing you to realize it, it is an invitation for us to partner with him, right, in our approach to be with Jesus, to help, right, in solving this problem and addressing this problem. Why couldn't our approach, or why couldn't their approach be, Jesus, what are we, meaning you and I, Father, you and I, Lord, what are we going to do about this problem? What would happen? What would happen if we begin to see our problems as opportunities? What would happen if we begin to see our problems this week a little differently, as an invitation to partner with the Lord in solving it, in addressing it? So I challenge you this week to think about that. As you go about your week, any problems that you're facing, even currently, do you see it as an opportunity, or do you see it as a burden, as something that I myself have to figure out? When Jesus is there with you, and if he's allowed you to see it as a problem, ask him, what are we going to do about it, Lord? I pray that you all go and be blessed and encouraged, and we'll talk again soon. Take care.